So, my name is Malcolm Larri, and let's talk about leading people in a time of challenge. To all the people that are coming in, please mute your microphone. That really helps be less distracted. So, leading people in a time of challenge. That's what we're here to talk about. And that's what I've been talking to leaders about all over Europe over the last 3 weeks as I've been doing webinars for our big customers. I've had an opportunity to speak to hundreds and hundreds of people all across Europe. And the feedback that I'm getting from them is it's a pretty tough time. A lot of them managing really well, but they could really use some help to understand how to do it better. So Anna, would you mind pressing the mute all button on the panel if you can? And then that will help me. Thank you. So let's use the chat function to interact. Lots of you already said hello to me. If anything goes wrong, just click the link, come back into the meeting. We all say a small prayer to the Wi-Fi gods that everything will work and we get the information we want to get out. The biggest change and disruption of our lifetimes is happening right now, and it's happening to everybody at the same time. This is absolutely unprecedented. So during, our parents' lifetime, our grandparents' lifetime, there were certainly huge disruptions, but I don't think in human history there's ever been a disruption that affected everybody at the same moment in the way that this is happening. So it's an absolutely unique moment in time, and the current situation is a once-in-a-lifetime leadership boot camp. And what I'm really encouraging leaders to do is to use this opportunity of this situation, which is a once-in-a-lifetime situation, because if we go into lockdown ever again, we're going to know how to do it much better. But right now, we're learning it day by day. How do we do this? How do we manage people, everybody remotely? And all of us have had some of our team working remotely sometimes, or we're working remotely sometimes, but none of us, most likely, have ever had everybody working remotely all the time. Hugely different. And one of the things that I really want everybody to understand is everybody in your team is watching you to see how they should feel about this situation. They're watching you to see how they should feel about it. And they're getting their cues from you as a leader. So what messages are you sending out every day through the way you communicate that shows them how to feel about this? Are you able to use certainty and confidence to make them feel that? Or is your lack of certainty starting to affect them? So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Malcolm Larri. I'm the Leadership and Culture Consultant at Hammer and Hanborg, originally from Sydney, Australia, as you can probably hear. Married a fantastic, wonderful Swedish lady, and she imported me to Stockholm. That's how I came to be here. And my background is I'm an NLP master practitioner. And NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. And that means that for the last 25 years, can everybody please mute their microphone? Thank you. For the last 25 years, I've been studying how language affects the way we interact with the world. The way we describe situations literally describes our experience of them. And if we change the way we use language, we change our experience of situations. And we can also use language as a way to influence other people. And language, as we're going to see today, is one of the key things that we can use to help people become more certain. So most of you are probably familiar with this model called VUCA, this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we're living in right now. And leading in this situation that we're currently in, I think, is such a great example of this. And I was hosting a conference in Copenhagen last year, and there was a futurist there that said something that blew my mind. He said, we've reached a point in our technological evolution that we will never know what the next 5 years ahead looks like ever again. Wow, how's that for uncertainty? But right now, let's just see if there's a match here. So if you think about the current situation, it's very volatile. The environment demands that you respond quickly to ongoing changes that are unpredictable and out of your control. Yep, that's definitely a match. Uncertain. The environment requires you take action without certainty. Check. That is definitely what's happening for most leaders right now. It's very complex. The environment is dynamic with a lot of interdependencies, a lot of things, one thing affecting each other. That's definitely true. And it's ambiguous, meaning it's really unclear. So the environment is unfamiliar and outside of your expertise. And that is where most leaders are finding themselves right now, that they're in this environment that's outside of their expertise. It's very unfamiliar and they don't know how to manage all the complexities of it. So what I'd like to just do now is just ask you to, I've been asking this question to leaders across Europe over the last 2-3 weeks. And what is the biggest challenge you're experiencing as a leader in this new way of working? Jump on the chat function. Tell me what you're experiencing. What is the biggest challenge for you? And it's fun if we share and I get to see. So experiencing. Um, I think everybody's experiencing, the challenges of being separated from other humans. One of the things that's come up so clearly is that distance, daily spontaneous exchange of ideas, hugely important. Keeping up motivation and energy, so much harder to do when people are on their own. People tend to lose momentum. Digital unreadiness, yeah, tell me about it. That is basically that's basically, it could be on my business card. Informal follow-up and chat over a cup of coffee. Being home with 7 persons, 5 kids and homeschooling. Hans Christian, you're a legend. If you survive that, you're a good man. To have a good overview and be able to coordinate work in a good way. Mostly seeing my department in large group settings. Yeah, extremely hard to grasp reactions on messages. I feel like my team is much less eager to share now how they really feel via screen rather than face to face. Super interesting. So this just over and over again. All the things you've listed, I've heard on every single webinar that I've had. People are homeschooling in Norway and I think Finland as well. But this distance between the team, over time, it starts to build up and it becomes a friction between them. And not having a proper desk and chair, yep, absolutely. I'm standing in my kitchen with 2 chairs on the table to do this webinar. So we're all doing it the best we can. But one thing that I think is super important for us to acknowledge is that as we go through this challenge, some of these problems are going to get bigger unless we have an intervention of some kind, unless we change some of the things that we're doing. Whoops, let me just press this button. Great. So let's talk about the power of certainty, because I think it's one of the most important things that leaders can be giving their teams right now. If the world is this VUCA world, this crazy, uncertain, ambiguous, complex world, then we need to be a source of certainty for our people, even if we are experiencing uncertainty ourselves. How do we do that? So confidence, if we talk about confidence, confidence is just a word that we use to describe a certain state within us about our own abilities. When you feel confident about something, it's a state of certainty. Now, we're able to generate states of certainty within us through the language we use, through the kind of things that we focus on, and the kind of um, decisions we make about what we want this experience to mean. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But deciding what this experience means is a huge piece of the confidence puzzle for you as a leader. So the first thing we have to do is we must hold the vision for our teams. We have to be the people that help our teams understand that we can still find a way to deliver on the goals that we set for ourselves. Whatever your goals were on January 1st, keep them. Don't change the goals. So, and some people say, oh, that's not really possible because of, we were going to get 2 million SEK more revenue, but now it's not more possible. Hey, it might be, but it just might not be possible the same way you were doing it before. But one of the things we do is if things are really uncertain outside the business and everything's changing there, we want to minimize the change inside the business as much as possible. So the very first thing is to hold that vision, have that certainty and confidence that you can do that, and don't move the goalposts. Don't move where the target is. Keep the target the same. Now, if you were on my call last week, you heard me talk about self-leadership. And my definition of self-leadership is the ability to continue to move in the direction of your choosing. The ability to continue to move in the direction of your choosing is what self-leadership is. And the flip side of that is leadership is the ability to move other people in the direction you want them to move them in. And if we keep our goals and we keep them, so whatever your goals were on January 1st, keep them and evolve them so they work. And most businesses still have the same top level goal, which is serving customers with this really high level of success, with excellence, so that you stay as successful as you were in the first place. And one of the other things is when we keep the goals, these long-term goals, and make that our horizon that we work towards, we're not letting short-term problems stop us from achieving our long-term goals. And we need to keep that focus. If we just focus on short-term problems, especially as leaders, we're going to feel like a boat being tossed about in the ocean. So really make sure that long-term goals are really clear and that you keep saying nothing has changed except the environment that we're doing this in. We still have the same values, we still have the same standards, we still have the same outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And that's incredibly important as the first pillar of certainty that you can create for your team. The second thing is, as a leader, you feel what you focus on. All of us have had the experience, you can have an argument with somebody who's not there. I know you've done it. That's what, maybe you're doing the washing up and you think about somebody that you had an argument with 10 years ago, and so you start feeling angry. So you can have arguments with people who aren't even there, or you can remember a funny memory and to start laughing and feel happy. And you feel what you focus on. And right now, lots and lots of stressed leaders that I'm working with are focused on what they can't do as a leader now. They're saying, I can't have those coffee chats. I can't have those quick interactions in the hallway that I used to have. And they're really focusing on that. And as the days go on in this lockdown, as days go on and the people are further and further away from them, as days go on, they focus on it more. The problem is you're generating fear and worry and anxiety in you, and then that's what you will have to give away. So make sure you're focusing on what you can control. That is actually one of the most important jobs of a leader, is to continually shift the focus of the people, including themselves, onto what they can control, on what they can action, what they can do. And just as a little bit of homework, I'd like you to think about this. It's really easy to focus what this situation is taking from us as one part of this experience. But on the other side is, what is this teaching us? We're all getting better at digital tools. We're all getting used to different ways of communicating. And some of them, remote learning has remote working has been kind of put up as the total future of working. And I think we're seeing that work and offices are not going to go away anytime soon, and that they serve a great purpose for us. So part of your homework is, I'd really like you to think about, as a leader, what have I learned through this situation, and start writing it down. Because once you start writing those learnings down, you'll start to see that this situation is actually a fantastic opportunity that is giving you things just as much as it's taking things away from you. So the 4 domains of certainty. Let's take a little water. So the 4 domains of certainty. I'll take some questions at the end. So that if you want to share your certainty with another human, there's really only 4 ways you can do it. Number 1 is the words that you use. Number 2 is the tone of voice. Number 3 is your body language. And number 4 is attitude. So let's go through those, because if you can get just 1 or 2 of these in your pocket today, that'll be a great takeaway for you to bring back to your teams. So this is a complex slide. I know it's quite ugly, but I couldn't really make it pretty. And if you're not looking at the screen right now, you're doing something else, please take a moment to look at this slide, unless you're driving, and then keep driving. So the words we choose will create emotions in other people. Words are emotion generators. And sometimes I ask leaders to share with me, like I'll ask them, can I sit in on some of your meetings, the leaders that I'm coaching? And I sit in on their meetings and I make notes about the things they say and the kind of language they're using. And this was one of the comments that came out of a meeting recently. The person said, could we try some, we could try some other options, I suppose. We could try some other options, I suppose. Now that is a really uncertain statement to deliver to your team. And when we go back and we coached on this, a sentence that would be much more powerful and impactful for the team would be, we must create 3 excellent alternative options this week. So let me break this sentence down and show you why there's much more certainty in it. So the first word is must. Now, if I say I should work out, I could work out, I must work out, they're completely different levels of emotion for me as both the speaker and the listener. So must is a call to action. It's a very strong call to action. It has a lot of urgency in it. The second word is create, meaning that it's not going to be outside of this team. We're not going to find good options. We're going to create good options. The options are already within us. The next piece of the sentence, which brings certainty, is I'm specifying a number. How many options do you want to have? 3. The next word is excellent. So why do we put a word like excellent into this sentence? Because if we leave it out, then we haven't set any standard for the work. There's no standard set for the work. But if you put the word excellent in, then that gives us the people listening the opportunity to understand the level of delivery that's expected. And then the words this week create a time frame for all of this to happen in. So we must create 3 excellent alternative options this week. A much more certain way to speak. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to, really be the heavy boss. You can say this really happy. We must create 3 excellent alternative options this week, guys. And let's make sure that we get together. Let's have a fika on Thursday at 4 o'clock, and we're going to make sure that we have them. We're going to round table. So you don't have to approach it like you're the heavy boss, but you do have to create that framework of expectation that is clear and certain. Now, this next sentence drives me crazy. I've heard lots of leaders saying it. Please stop saying this. No one knows how long this crisis will last. If you want to generate stress in other humans, keep saying that. So the way that a leader who wanted to generate certainty in their team would say it is, this pandemic may continue all year, but we don't need to be in a crisis all year if we choose now to adapt quickly. So we don't need to be in a crisis, just showing the team that there is a choice about how you respond, and that choosing now to adapt quickly is the way you do it. So if you think about this, and I think emails are a great way to start when you're looking at your language. It's quite hard sometimes to generate that kind of certainty while you're speaking or doing it on the fly if you're not used to it, but really think about what you're saying in your emails, in your communications. Are they clear? Make sure there's a lot of certainty and clarity inside your communications just with the words. The next piece of the 4 domains of certainty is the tone of your voice. So as a leader, when you're addressing your people, speak from your chest voice. So I'm speaking to you now in my chest voice, my speaker's voice. It's just like if I speak in my normal voice, it's a little bit higher, it's in my throat. But if I speak a little bit deeper, it sounds like more authority. Speak a slightly faster and speak clearly. So when you're in a meeting with people, make sure that you're in your leader's state, and voice is a really big part of that. And it's much more powerful to pause than say, I think we really need to find 3 excellent alternatives for so whenever you're umming and ahhing, you're taking a lot of certainty out of the communication. So, and the other thing is emphasize the words that have certainty in them. Use your voice to emphasize words that have certainty in them. Very, very powerful. Tone of voice makes up so much of our communication. And I think this is something that people are really forgetting to do because they're stressed. And the next piece of the puzzle is body language. So I don't know how many times I'm in a meeting and the body language of what someone is saying is actually the opposite of what they're trying to communicate. So what happens if we make sure we have a confident posture, our facial expression is open and alert, and our hand gestures, emphasize certain words. So really think about, is my body language, I saw a leader say, we're going to get this done, and then he rolled his eyes as if to say, I don't want to do it either. Well, that's not really creating a lot of certainty for other people. And the last of the 4 domains of attitude, and this one is probably the most important one to really think about and take away, is people will do based on everything that they see and hear you doing all the time, not just what you say in meetings. Everything counts all the time when it comes to your attitude. So if your attitude is certain that things can happen, if your attitude is confident, you have to understand that people are going to judge your attitude over everything you do, not just what you say in the Monday meetings. Now, the really good news here is what you give to your team. When you do this, you will feel it too. Just like helping an old lady across the road is an act of kindness, makes you feel good while you're being kind. When you give your team certainty, you get to take that certainty with you. And I think that's an amazing, amazing opportunity for you as a leader to generate certainty. So I'm going to give that certainty to my team so I can feel it too. And you create this beautiful loop, leadership loop of certainty and confidence and clarity. It has never been more important as a leader to bring the energy of certainty to every single interaction you have with your teams. Everyone is watching you to see how they should be feeling about this situation too. And as I always say, your energy is your influence. It's not the content of what you say. It's actually your whole overall energy. Because as the great poet philosopher Maya Angelou said, it doesn't matter. They won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And right now, every leader is basically generating their reputation for the next 5 years, in the next 5 months. So over the next 5 months during this crisis, you're going to create a reputation for yourself that is going to last long after this crisis is over. And I think it's really, really important that we start feeling, that we start, really focusing on the energy we're giving our teams. So everybody's under pressure. High standards needs to get higher to make our customers feel safe. In your case, as a leader, your customers are the people you serve. They're under pressure. They need a higher standard of leadership and certainty from you. And this is an astonishingly great opportunity to build trust. So the homework that I really want you to do is this. What do you want to be remembered for as a leader during this challenging time? What do you want to be remembered for as a leader during this challenging time? Because the first piece of certainty that you can bring to work every day is to have made that decision and to live into it. So if you want to be remembered as a kind and empathetic leader, that first decision you make there, that to your team every single day. No one can disrupt that. So your homework for today really, as you go about your day, is to really nail down, what do you want to be remembered for as a leader? If you have some thoughts, please drop them in the chat window now. But what do you want to be remembered for as a leader? Because if you make that one decision, you're creating certainty for yourself. And that can be the first foundational piece of certainty that you bring to work every single day. I'd really love to hear your questions. If you have any comments, I'd love to take them. I know this is a really quick breakfast coffee session. If I don't get to any of your questions, so dealing with people being more fragile and volatile. Yeah, great. That was the importance. Great. So some people are writing, and Rachel's saying positive, resilient, and kind. Great webinar. Thank you. What is it? What do you want to be remembered for? Put it in the chat window if you think about it, if you've got it in your head now. What is your view about showing vulnerability? Yes, it's